nothing more disgusting than somebody pandering to an audience. But that's exactly what Representative Nancy Mace was caught doing. Now, in an interview with Fox News on Sunday, Mace was on with former Congressman Jason Chaffetz, who pushed, some anti-vax talking points. Oh, we got natural immunity, and that's superior to vaccine-induced immunity. And then, of course, less than a day later, less than 24 hours afterwards, she then goes on CNN to give the opposite points and to be pro-vaccine. In fact, here's that duplicity.
And one of the things that the CDC has not done, and no policymaker at the federal level has done so far, is taken into account what natural immunity does. And that may be what we're seeing in Florida today. In some studies that I've read, natural immunity gives you 27 times more protection against future COVID infection than a vaccination. And so we need to take all of the science into account and not selectively choosing what science to follow when we are making policy decisions. And you're seeing, I believe, Governor DeSantis is, seeing the fruit of that labor today. And I've been a proponent of vaccinations and wearing masks when we need to. When we had the Delta variant raging in South Carolina, I wrote an op-ed to my community. And I've worked with our State Department of Health. I've run ads encouraging my district to go and get vaccinated. And when we have these variants and we have these spikes, to take every precaution from washing our hands to wearing the N95 or KN95 masks more than the medical mask. There is a statistically significant number of people that are protected from COVID when they wear those masks.
Literally less than a day apart. Wow. Oh yeah, COVID is serious business, and I'm very proud. I've always been very pro-vaccination, and I'm pro KN95 mask, but only when I'm on CNN. If I'm talking to conservatives, well, we got to follow science, and natural immunity is 27 times better than, vaccines. So, look, Nancy Mace is a fantastic example of, the duplicity here. She knows her audience. She knows who she's talking to. And so that allows her, and understand that these audiences generally do not cross-pollinate. You think Fox News, the Fox News audience watches CNN at all? No. And look, vice versa, right? The CNN audience doesn't watch Fox News. And so she thinks that she can go on camera in these two different places and tell two different stories and have two different points of view. Well, amazing. Amazing. And again, disingenuous as hell. And that, by the way, this is the worst part. She obviously knows better. Duh. But she is lying and playing both sides. And that's it. She is a grifter, and a great example of, I think, how the most well-paid and well-known anti-vax hosts in conservative media are also lying to their audience because they know that their audience is a bunch of conspiracy theorist reactionaries. That's it. And look, they booed Donald Trump for saying, oh, you should probably get the vaccine because the vaccine is good. I got the vaccine. You should probably get the vaccine too. But, only if you want to. Only if you want to. It's a choice. It's a choice. Yeah, I believe in freedom. I believe in choices. The freedom and choices. Still, boo, Trump, you suck. That's what they do. That's what they do. And so, again, these conservatives, they don't want this. They don't want to be pushed back on their base. They want to pander and they want to placate the base because guess what? They turn out. They turn out very reliably. And very important, they also primary politicians they think are not, serving them enough. On the one hand, I can't help but admire how fearful the Republican politicians are of their base. Now, of course, that does unfortunately lead to them essentially lying. And look, the same thing kind of happens on the Democratic side, except that they don't really, they're not really that afraid of the Democratic base. A lot of the Democratic politicians, but they still do the pandering. I mean, Nancy Pelosi with Kinty cloth. Okay, ridiculous, right? But they don't listen to any sort of feedback, and they certainly do everything that they can to fight against primary challenges and make sure the primary challenge or the primary process is the most difficult thing. Whereas we don't really have that on the Republican side. Republicans primary each other all the time, and some are very, very successful. And so, but as I said, there are reasons. Again, going back to the Republican base, some of them are incredibly heavily armed and will send death threats if a Republican, and I showed you the video of course, Fred Upton being called a traitor for voting for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Okay. And not because of all the bad stuff that was in it, and there was a lot of bad stuff, and there was some good stuff in it as well. You know, some of the bad stuff is privatization, in investments in, you know, private-public partnerships, lots of corporate welfare, lots of support. The Republican base doesn't go against the bipartisan infrastructure bill because of that stuff. No, they don't know what's in it. They just think, well, you're doing deals with satanic pedophiles, the satanic pedophile cult that eats babies and murders babies and drinks their blood. Well, I can't. But how dare you? You're a traitor. You're a traitor for actually doing legislation with these people. How dare you? So yeah, but understand that they lie for many different reasons. But that's what it is. Conservatives, again, Fox News, media, they do lie. But it gets better. Because after this, somebody notices how this woman loves to play, oh no, it's both sides. It's the both sides game. So let's do the both sides game. And well, here it is. Here she is doing it.
I have time after time condemned my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. We all have a responsibility, both elected members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. I get threats. I carry a gun now, Caitlin, because of the threats that I get from the fringes of both parties right now. I encourage people on both sides of the aisle to take a pause, and we've got to do a better job, both sides, going forward.
Would it help lower the temperature, which you say is necessary, if Kevin McCarthy was more vocally forceful about these comments?
I would say it would help lower the temperature if both sides did that. What I would like to see both sides treated equally, and I think that's important.
And there it is. Both sides, both sides. Both sides are doing it. No, there's no both sides on this one. There's anti-vaxxers, and then there's people who are in reality. But look, here's what we know. Vaccines are better than what they call natural immunity in one very, very important way. And by the way, I'm just going to take issue here with calling it natural immunity. Because you think about it, it's like, well, first off, it's actually not immunity at all. It should be called natural resistance and vaccine-induced resistance. When you call it immunity, that's kind of confusing, okay, to some people. Because, well, you hear immune, and again, I come from a gamer background, so you think immune like, oh, I'm immune to damage. I'm immune to poison damage. I'm not going to take any damage from that. Completely immune, right? Well, again, in medical terminology, it's different. And that's why I think it should be called resistance. Resistance. And by the way, you know, if you get the vaccine, and you absolutely should, you're still not 100% immune from getting the virus. Yes, your chances of getting infected with COVID-19 are significantly less than when you compare it to someone else who has not received any of the vaccines or had just received one dose of the vaccine. Okay, and again, you're also not not immune from getting COVID-19 if you've already had COVID. And so now, again, your chances of not getting COVID again are better than if you haven't been vaccinated at all, because you do have resistance. And so that's the point of where it's actually way better to get vaccinated, because you are resistant to getting COVID without actually having to get COVID first to develop the quote-unquote natural resistance. Okay? So now remember, you can only get that natural, so-called natural resistance or natural immunity if you've had COVID first. And unfortunately, there is a certain number of people that do not survive that first run-in, that first little bout with COVID. And among those who do, some of them, a percentage, end up with long-term COVID or long-haul COVID, heart damage, lung damage, permanent disability, high medical bills, things like that. And even without all of that, being unvaccinated and getting COVID also is more effective at spreading it around than being vaccinated. The more people that are vaccinated, the less chance, of course, it has to spread around to other people. And so there are varying factors as to why that is, including, again, viral load versus vaccinated and unvaccinated people who get COVID, and even behavioral, for example, being more careful. If you're somebody who wears a mask and gets vaccinated, it's very likely that your behavior is a lot more cautious in getting or transmitting the virus, or getting it and then and possibly transmitting it to others. You're just being more careful, and behavioral factors, do work. And so they do have an impact. And again, mask wearing, taking quarantine very seriously. But at the end of the day, it turns out that the studies have shown that having both vaccine and natural resistance actually tends to be the best at not getting COVID again. But I would say that the best is just not getting COVID in the first place. I think having, this vaccine resistance is good. Being vaccinated will always win out over the other, over all other measures, especially when it comes to getting COVID again. In fact, a new CDC study published in October found that vaccines are about 5 times more effective in preventing COVID-19 than natural immunity or natural resistance. And so it's also unclear how long protection from the natural resistance lasts, as you can be reinfected with COVID if you've already had it. And so please get your vaccine. Very important. Do not listen to the grifters who obviously are playing on you and your fears and feeding you mis and disinformation for cash. You're not just playing with your life, but you are playing with the lives of others. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.